So, the last time I was here, I had cancer. It's true. It's okay. And I don't now. So that's good. I kind of thought, this is my second Story Slam participation time. And the first one, I just wandered up here and was like, I have cancer in a very Tig Notaro way, I guess. And then, I was like, okay, so today I'm going to come back and, tell you guys something that's a little more planned out and maybe a little bit more coherent now that I'm through the worst of it. And I thought, well, but it is going to depress people. It's pretty heavy. Maybe I shouldn't do that. And then as it turns out, I'm pitching right down the middle of the plate for tonight. So, it's all going to be okay. So the story I want to tell is about a scar in my DNA. I have a BRCA mutation. That means that my body doesn't repair cancer cells at all. And so when I was diagnosed with cancer, it was a crisis, but not a surprise. My grandma died of cancer before I was born, and then my aunt died of cancer in 2003, and my mother is only alive because she took preventative steps not to die from cancer in the 90s, before anybody knew that this was really genetic in the first place. And I'm also a mom. So it turns out that when you get cancer as a mother, and being a sick mother, not a sick motherfucker, sorry, okay. Sorry, that was in my head, I just had to let it out, okay. But when you are a sick mother, you realize that your body is not just yours. It also belongs to your children, and also the scar that I was born with might be one that they also have. So I had a bilateral mastectomy in 2015 after I was diagnosed with cancer and some routine screening that I was doing because of my genetic status. And the question that is running through your mind, let me just answer that to you, yes, they are. That was supposed to be funny, yeah. I have fake boobs, that was the joke. Okay, sorry. Anyways. So, it's hard to recover from that. That's my husband. So anyways, I had a bilateral mastectomy in 2015, in May of that year, and I kind of went into the surgery I had this BRCA thing. I've already kind of mourned that this was going to happen. In fact, I had another surgery scheduled when I was diagnosed with cancer, so I was sort of this is really just a bump in the road, and I'll, triumph and look really good afterwards. So it's cool. And the surgery itself was traumatic. I remember trying not to cry when the doctors were drawing on me before the surgery. I'm working with textiles a lot, and it strikes me that it's the same thing that a seamstress would do with a pattern on fabric. So I woke up from the surgery, I was in a lot of pain, more pain than I had ever been in, really, even with my labors and C-sections of my two children, who were 4 and 1 at the time. And I, asked to stay in the hospital an extra day. My doctor, who I thought was being a huge dick, was like, no, I want to get you out of here. And I was like, yeah, I've been pushing the morphine button. Not the first time we've heard of that tonight, right? for the last 12 hours, I don't think I can get up the stairs to my apartment, and I cannot begin to think about how to let my children see me in this pain. And she, eventually let me stay. But now I know that she was trying to get me out of the hospital because that's where post-op infections live. So, as it turned out, this whole cancer thing was not like a bump in the road. They found more while I was during my mastectomy, and it meant that I had to have chemotherapy. So in my first round of chemo, I also had a post-op infection, which meant that I didn't have any way to fight that at all. So I got really sick. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks before they decided that they were going to take the tissue expander out of my chest that was causing the infection. And I would undergo many more reconstructive surgeries to gain this physique that you see here. By the way, my dad would be so proud of me right now that I'm standing up on a stage talking about my boobs. Let's move on. In any case, and I had to have another surgery later in that year. I had a hysterectomy to remove my ovaries and uterus because that's the best way to prevent yourself from getting breast cancer again. And so after having all of that, I was sort of, I was mangled, essentially, in the course of 6 months. And I had to find a way to show my children that my body was still the body of their mother. And it was so hard. All I wanted to do was find a sweatshirt and put it on and not come out of it ever. Just the biggest, grossest, coyote sweatshirt. But I have a daughter, and I also have a son. And I needed them to see that the definition of my womanhood and who I am was not fully contained in the body parts that define me as female. Because I want them to view other people like that. So it totally sucked. I had to pull it together and for myself. This is what we do as parents. It's great. I was still hiding in the locker room at the natatorium, which, by the way, if you have a mastectomy and you are not reconstructed and you have a hysterectomy, do not go and work out in a locker room full of 19-year-old girls. It's terrible in there. It was awful. I was changing in a towel, trying to be I am a strong woman, I run the world, like Beyonce says. So, in any case, when I think about my scars, which are all over my body at this point, I've had 7 surgeries, I've moved body parts around a lot. I think about them as anchors for my femininity rather than markers, just markers of what I've lost. And I think that's kind of the moral, right? There's a reason why there's 17 people who want to tell a story tonight, right? It's because the scars really end up being this place where it's both the complexity of our humanity is there. We survive, and we lost things, and we just keep going. which is the happiest ending that I get to offer you. Thank you.